Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 3 a.m. Yes, 3 a.m., ladies and gentlemen. And of course, today's date is the 15th of June, 2025. And you know what day it is? It is it is Father's Day. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there doing their duties, doing their jobs, working hard every day to pay the bills, to cater for their family, to love on their wives, their kids, and to communicate love and greatness to the people that they love, and also for contributing to the society. So, thank you to the fathers. I myself, I am a father. I got a 5-year-old daughter. So, of course, I I know how it feels to be a father for sure. It's sometimes overwhelming, but for the most part, it is a blessing. It is a privilege to have yourself in this world and to have a mini you, like a small version of you, looking at you and saying, "Hey, daddy," that feels good. Like that feels so good. So, first of all, I want to say happy Father's Day to the beautiful, awesome, brave, strong fathers out there. God bless y'all. All right, with that being said, you know what time it is. The United States Army, the great, fierce, unstoppable United States Army celebrated 250 years of bravery, of victory today. Well, yesterday. But we're going to take a look at the 45th, now the 47th president of the United States. He also celebrated them. But coincidentally, his birthday was also yesterday. So double celebration. Some people are saying, especially the liberals are saying that, well, he's using the army to celebrate his birthday. This is not celebrating the army's birthday. It is celebrating the president's birthday. But, liberals are always going to talk regardless of what this man does. Liberals are always going to talk. But, ladies and gentlemen, it is a free speech platform. Say what you want, but be respectful because of the algorithm. Okay, let's be respectful in the chat now. So I see C Shelly. Shout out to C Shelly, man. God bless you, C Shelly. God bless you. You know what time it is. C Shelly says, "Happy Father's Day to a great dad." Thank you, man. Thank you. Shout out to C Shelly one more time, man. I see you, Jet. Jet, I see you, man. How you doing? Jet also says, "Happy Father's Day, Genesis. Got a 2-year old myself." Oh, 2 years old. Yo, that stage you're in right now, Jet, 2 years old. Eh, I know, man. My daughter is 5 years old right now. Shout out to the GOAT, Luke. God bless you, Luke, for tuning in. Esteemed member, Luke, God bless you. All right, everybody, you know what time it is. We are here to have a good time. Enjoy the show.
Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you to Vice President Vance. And thank you to our wonderful First Lady. And above all, thank you to the greatest, fiercest, and bravest fighting force ever to stride the face of this earth, the United States Army. Thank you very much. Because the Army keeps us free, you make us strong, and tonight You have made all Americans very proud. They're watching from all over the world, actually. Made them all very proud. Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's what we're doing tonight. And watching this magnificent display, our souls are filled with gratitude for every generation of warriors who have worn the uniform all the way back to the very beginning. So to every veteran across our land and right here in our nation's capital, including 6 recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor, we love you, we honor you, and we salute your noble service to our flag and to our country. As we celebrate tonight, we also think of the hundreds of thousands of Army soldiers who have made the supreme sacrifice for our nation and selflessly laid down their lives in every war, from the Revolution to the War on Terror. To the Gold Star families with us today, the courage of your heroes is the bedrock on which our entire nation stands. We thank you. Yes, we thank you. Today we commemorate an event that did not just change American history, but changed the history of the entire world. With the creation of America's Army on June 14th, 1775, liberty got its shield and the freedom got its sword. Those first Army patriots in the American Revolution fought against a fearsome enemy and impossible odds, but they were armed with a righteous cause. They were led by an indomitable commander, a truly great man, General George Washington, and they were united by an eternal creed. Their motto was victory or death. Over the past 2.5 centuries, our warriors have shown unrivaled valor on fields of battle around the globe. With the frostbitten feet and bloody fist, they have marched into the flames and fury of combat, charged up mountains, stormed beaches, waded through torrents of gunfire, and leapt into skies thick with smoke and shrapnel. The U.S. Army has driven bayonets into the heart of sinister empires, crushed the ambitions of evil tyrants. Beneath the threads of American tanks, it's done so well, it's done so much, and sent the devil himself flying into full retreat. Time and again, America's enemies have learned that if you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you. Your defeat will be certain, your demise will be final, and your downfall will be total and complete. Because our soldiers never give up, never surrender, and never, ever quit. They fight, 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 and they win, win, win. And that's why no institution in history has entered more names into the roster of American heroes than the U.S. Army, the Congressional Medal of Honor, more than anyone or anything. There was Mad Anthony Wayne, asked by George Washington to lead a daring midnight raid up the cliffs of Stony Point with unloaded muskets and only their bayonets to fight the redcoats. Mad Anthony replied, "Issue the order, sir, and I will storm into hell for you." Then there was the Civil War general, John Corse, shot in the face in combat. He fired off a message to his commander: "I am short a cheekbone and one ear, but I am able to whip the hell out of all of them." He stayed on the front lines, it seemed forever. In World War II, there was the great Creighton Abrams, besieged on all sides by the Nazis at the Battle of the Bulge. He boldly proclaimed, "They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards." This is the fighting spirit and unyielding force of the U.S. Army. It has never changed. and it will never, ever change, because there is no earthly force more powerful than the brave heart of a U.S. infantryman or an Army Ranger, paratrooper, or Green Beret. They are the best. They are the finest. From Bunker Hill to San Juan Hill, from Gettysburg to Guadalcanal, from Yorktown to Shiloh, and from the trenches of the Argonne to the mountains of Afghanistan, the Army has forged a legacy of unmatched courage, untold sacrifice, and unequaled and undying glory. Our soldiers have poured out their blood by the bucketful on Missionary Ridge and Heartbreak Ridge, on the sands of Sicily, Normandy, and the Philippines, and on the dusty streets of Da Nang, Baghdad, and Fallujah. Thanks to their extraordinary service and devotion, 250 years later, America stands tall, America stands proud, and America stands free. We're the hottest country in the world right now, and our country will soon be greater and stronger than ever before. Down through history, we've been blessed beyond words by this valiant legion of Army warriors and patriots, heroes and legends. And tonight we affirm with unwavering certainty that in the years ahead and in every generation hence, whenever duty calls and whatever danger comes, the American soldier will be there.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
No matter the risk, no matter the obstacles, our warriors will charge into battle. They will plunge into the crucible of fire, and they will seize the crown of victory, because the United States of America will always have the grace of Almighty God and the iron will of the United States Army. Congratulations to everybody. We love our country. We've never done better. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the Army, and God bless America. And now I'd like to ask our great First Lady to join me at the podium. Thank you very much, everybody.
I don't know why people hate on this man. Like, come on. He's celebrating the Army, y'all. Here we go.
Mr. President, on behalf of the United States Army, the Army Golden Knights, I would like to present to you this flag, which was flown over our nation's capital in free fall during the Army's 250th birthday celebration.
This right here is greatness, all right? Celebrating the hardworking, brave Army 250 years old birthday. This is what America is all about. Meanwhile, while all of this was going on, of course, Tampon Team's state is doing a lot. Check this out. Tampon Team, ladies and gentlemen.
Canada's up-to-minute update on the situation here in Minnesota. You're going to be joined by Commissioner Bob Jacobson, BCA Superintendent Drew Evans, State Patrol Colonel Christina Bogoyevich, Champlain Park Police Chief Snyder, and Brooklyn Park Police Chief Mark Bruley, as well as the Mayor of Brooklyn Park. We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination. Our state lost a great leader, and I lost a dearest of friends. Speaker Hortman was someone who served the people of Minnesota with grace, compassion, humor, and a sense of service. She was a formidable public servant, a fixture and a giant in Minnesota. She woke up every day determined to make this state a better place. She is irreplaceable, and we've been missed by so many. Minnesota's thoughts and prayers are with her family, her loved ones, her children, and her parents. My prayers also go out to State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette, who were each shot multiple times.
Oh, man.
The Hoffmans are out of surgery at this time and receiving care, and we are cautiously optimistic they will survive this assassination attempt. This was an act of targeted political violence. Peaceful discourse is the foundation of our democracy. We don't settle our differences with violence or at gunpoint. In the state of Minnesota, and as recently as last week, in the most closely divided state legislature in the country, we sat down, we worked things out, we debated, we shook hands and compromised, and we served the state of Minnesota together. We proved that it's possible, even in these politically charged times, to find compromise and adhere to the principles of democracy and civil discourse. We must all, Minnesota and across the country, stand against all forms of political violence. At this precipice moment we're on, this tragic act here in Minnesota should serve as a reminder to all of us. The democracy and the debates in the halls of Congress, in state houses, in school boards, is a way to settle our differences peacefully and move society to a better place. We're collaborating with all local, state, and federal agencies on a full investigation. We're committed to keeping Minnesotans informed as the situation continues. I assure you that those responsible for this will be held accountable, and each and every one of us are committed to making sure that a tragedy like this never repeats itself in Minnesota or across this country. I'd now like to turn it over to my public safety team to fill you in on the specifics of this ongoing investigation.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Drew Evans, and I'm the superintendent at the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. I want to start by just expressing our deepest sympathies to the communities, the family, the friends, and everybody that cared about the individuals that were gunned down today. When we have individuals like this in our political leadership, they're not only political leaders, but they're members of the community, well-known members of the community, that the tragedy in a situation like this is not only for them, their friends and families, but us collectively, the communities they represent, us as a state of Minnesota as a whole. About 2 a.m. this morning, there was an original call in the city of Champlin where there was an individual that had shot Senator Hoffman and his wife. Police responded to that location. They were dealing with that and working through that process overnight. And then later on, at approximately 3:35, another call came in when it was officers proactively checking because they knew of the incident that occurred, and they were going to check on Speaker Hortman at that time, at which time Brooklyn Park police officers encountered the individual who immediately fired at them, and they exchanged gunfire, and then the individual was able to escape during that exchange of gunfire. At the residence in Champlin, there was life-saving measures that were provided there. Both individuals were transported, as was previously noted, and they both received surgeries for their injuries at the hospital, and their conditions are at this time, both those individuals, Senator Hoffman and his wife, are both alive at this time, but they suffered gunshot wounds and are obviously in a difficult situation, but we're cautiously optimistic that they will continue to improve. At this time, it is a very active scene still, as you've seen. The Brooklyn Park Police Department, along with other members, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, State Patrol, FBI, BC, and many others are actively engaged in a manhunt for the individual that we believe is responsible for this. And so we'll be sharing the identity with those individuals as this progresses, but I'm going to caution you, I know there's going to be a ton of interest in this. We're not at the position we can do that as we're actively searching for that individual. Right now, just as noted, we have teams. Hennepin County Sheriff's Office and Champlin are working at the scene there that occurred there. And then we are also, as we're stabilizing this between Brooklyn Park, working on the homicide investigation with Brooklyn Park Police, the BCA, FBI is assisting there as well, and we'll be conducting a crime scene investigation there. And then the individuals that were killed will be doing autopsies of those individuals to determine the extent of their injuries and how they passed away. But it was from gunshot wounds. At this time, I will answer questions after Commissioner of Public Safety Bob Jacobson speaks, but we'll be happy to take a few questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Evans. My name is Bob Jacobson. It's my honor to serve as the Commissioner of Public Safety for the state of Minnesota. This is a dark day today for Minnesota and for democracy, but we will not allow fear or violence to define who we are or how we move forward. We will stand together and we will stand strong. Our hearts, of course, go out to the victims, their families, their colleagues at the Capitol, and to the communities that they serve with dedication and with integrity. These are public servants, leaders who committed their lives to improving the lives of others, and they were targeted in a violent and cowardly way. The suspect exploited the trust of our uniforms, that our uniforms are meant to represent. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility. We want to reassure the public that there is increased security in place for elected officials and others who may be at risk. If you see anything suspicious, especially involving individuals impersonating law enforcement, please report it immediately by calling 911 or your local police department. With that, I'll step back and we will be available for any questions. Thank you.
One reminder, please, as you ask your first questions, please don't forget to introduce yourselves, your media organization, and to the folks answering the questions, please don't forget to repeat the question.
Walker RC, Search Being. So, can you say one more time? So, you were just going to proactively check on Speaker Merritt's apartment, and then police there encountered the gunman or someone with a gun and exchanged gunfire. Can you just go over that one more time, please?
I can. Good morning, Police Chief Mark Bruley, Brooklyn Park Police Department. The question is, how did we get to Representative Portman's house, and it was proactively or not? The circumstances that unfolded in Brooklyn Park this morning is that we assisted the Champlin Police Department on a shooting. That shooting was made aware by one of our sergeants that it was at Senator Hoffman's home. In hearing that very intuitive sergeant asked our officers to go check on Melissa Hortman's home, the representative that lives in our community, just proactively as due diligence to swing by. That police officer and his partner pulled down the street when they arrived at Melissa's house. They noticed that there was a police vehicle in the driveway with the lights, emergency lights on, and what appeared to be a police officer at the door coming out of the house. When our officers confronted him, the individual immediately fired upon the officers, who exchanged gunfire, and the suspect retreated back into the home.
Was this an actual police officer or impersonating a police officer?
Yes, the question is, was it a real person or a person impersonating a police officer? It was not a real police officer. This is somebody that clearly had been impersonating a police officer, again, using the trust of this badge and this uniform to manipulate their way into the home.
So Chief Burley, Janitorial Pier 11, the person not only was wearing a badge, posing as a police officer, when they approached their victims, they had a car with lights and sirens?
Yes, the question is what kind of vehicle, how were they dressed? They did drive a vehicle that looked exactly like an SUV squad car. It was equipped with lights, emergency lights that looked exactly like a police vehicle. And yes, they were wearing a vest with taser, other equipment that would, a badge very similar to mine, that no question if they were in this room, you would assume that they are a police officer.
Chief Bruley, Adam Dexter with WCCO News. Can you describe the moments after that played out? You said the person went into the home, and then can you help us understand the next 10, 15 minutes of how we got to the point we're at now?
Yeah, briefly, although I'm just going to remind us that this is an absolutely active investigation. We have thousands of people sheltered in place in the city of Brooklyn Park right now. We are in an extensive manhunt involving hundreds and hundreds of police officers and SWAT teams searching, gridding off areas as we believe confidently the suspect had fled out the back of the house after being confronted by the police. Very briefly, after the officers had exchanged gunfire and the suspect retreated into Melissa's home, they immediately went up to the threshold and looked in and seen a male that was down, clearly had been struck by gunfire. They made limited penetration, grabbed a hold of the male and drug him out to safety to attempt first aid. However, he was pronounced dead shortly after that. At that point, the officers surrounded the house, got additional resources and SWAT resources, and then ultimately went in with a drone identifying a female in the home.
How far apart are the two scenes? About 8 miles?
I would say, yeah, somewhere around 5 or 6 miles apart.
How much do you know about did the person that was impersonating an officer who allegedly shot these people, did they knock on the door and people came to the door, or the person break into the home?
Yeah, it was knocking on the door and asking the person to come out, absolutely impersonating a police officer.
Do you all have the suspect's car?
We do have the suspect's car. Suspect is on foot. That is what the large-scale search is currently going on. I just remind residents of Brooklyn Park, I know it's been a long time, but those that are in the grid that we gave the alert out to continue to shelter in place. We're also reminding them that if somebody comes to the door and they knock on the door and claiming to be a police officer, please do a couple of things. One, call 911 and confirm that the officer belongs there. If they are a police officer, dispatch will be able to confirm that that person is a police officer. Also, we've informed all our officers in Brooklyn Park that they are not to approach anybody by themselves. They're to approach in pairs, meaning 2 officers. So if there's only 1 officer outside the door, do not answer the door and call 911. If it's a Brooklyn Park police officer or any of our partners that are assisting, they will come in pairs of 2 or more.
Do you know if the gunman said anything?
I'm sorry, one at a time.
Do you know if the gunman said anything, like when he knocked on the door, did he say anything to like Senator Hoffman or anything?
We do know that he did, but I'm going to hold that back as part of the investigation right now.
You guys did detain someone for information? Is that accurate?
This is a very large-scale search, so we have detained several people and questioned them, but we do not have anybody in custody at this time.
I know you may not want to identify that person publicly, but have you privately identified the suspect?
We have people of interest that we are looking for.
Michelle Griffith, Minnesota Reformer. Other than that, these are 2 Democratic lawmakers. Is there anything else to suggest that this is politically motivated?
Again, I'm going to hold back most of the information. This is part of the investigation that we completed. This is rapidly evolving, just occurred a few hours ago, and we're trying to sort it out. We have partners from the FBI, the BCA, the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, and almost every suburban agency in our community helping us with this. So it's very complex and working on it. What I will tell you, when we did a search of the vehicle, there wasn't a manifesto that identified many lawmakers and other officials. We immediately made alerts to the state who took action on alerting them and providing security where necessary, and that's about, I'll stop there.
Chief, thank you very much. We're going to take one more question.
Sure, with the PCA, can I ask you use the word target, and that's kind of along the lines of Michelle's question in terms of politics, Democrats, Republicans. These are both Democratic lawmakers. You said the word targeted, so targeted because they're politicians or targeted because they're Democrats?
Well, so the question is were they targeted, and when I use the term, why am I using the term? As Chief Bruley noted, there was a list of individuals, and the individuals that were targeted in this situation were on that list. And so when we're looking at that, as Chief Bruley said, it's far too early in the investigation to be able to provide information, but I do think we'll be in a position where we'll be able to develop the motivation behind these attacks, and we'll be able to provide more information as this unfolds. And so that's part of the reason we're using it, is I think there's some preliminary information that is telling us kind of where this is headed, but we need a lot more work done by all the teams that are here working on that to be able to provide that with you with a degree of accuracy.
Are you saying how many individuals were on this list?
Quite a few.
Rally in the Capitol today.
Thank you.
Is that still?
Yep, hold on. Colonel, do you want to talk about the rally at the Capitol?
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning, Colonel Bogoyevich with the State Patrol. We are aware of the demonstrations across Minnesota, including the Capitol and across the nation. We will work with our state partners and our local partners to provide security and safety for those that attend.
Christy Miller, primary press can you confirm that you will have a sniper stationed at the Capitol today?
The question was, will we have a sniper at the Capitol? We don't discuss our security plans on the Capitol grounds.
Colonel, thank you.
They better be.
Okay, thank you.
So this is why I always say unity is what we should preach. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal or a conservative. It doesn't matter. Okay, you are American. This is so disgusting. Absolutely disgusting that this can happen on American soil. I mean, you have people, countries ready to really end the greatness of America. And here we are in America fighting each other. Nah, man, this ain't right. Anyway, FBI, well, former FBI agent sort of kind of like breaks all of this down. Check this out.
Let's go now to former D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor Ted Williams. Ted, thank you for being here. A lot to digest here. The thing that stands out is that we've got an active manhunt in a residential area that is under lockdown for a man who is heavily armed, seemingly sophisticated in his attack, wearing a police uniform. Where do you go from here, Ted? What are the things that your top line concerns?
Well, my first concern is this just limited to that area and those politicians in that area, or is this something that is that could very well be nationwide? That is my concern. Is there a group or one individual out here that's targeting lawmakers? We know that, according to the authorities, that they have this manifesto that had the name of numerous lawmakers on it. I would have to agree with your previous guests that the law enforcement officers know that this is involving more than just one individual, that there are perhaps other individuals that are actually involved in this. And this took a certain kind of a sophistication and planning. And you can tell that by the fact that the person impersonated a police officer, had a law enforcement uniform on. And I would assume then believe that that is why the Hartmans and the Horstmans opened their door because they saw a person in uniform. And that also, Brian, creates a problem for law enforcement officers. Because remember, law enforcement officers that are on this manhunt, they're also dressed in police uniforms.
Yeah, the thing I'm thinking about, you bring up an excellent point, is that you want to find this person as quickly as possible, but there are a couple of things that are slowing them down. One, you're in a residential area with innocent folks all over the place. And two, the person you're looking for is wearing a police uniform. That has to slow down any kind of manhunt, does it not?
Absolutely. It puts law enforcement at a different height of alert in looking for this killer or killers. And so what they're going to do is methodically go through that community. I heard one of your guests say that the person could very well be holding someone hostage. So I would ask that individuals in that community, if you know someone, try to stay in communication with them, because we don't know where this killer is. He could still be in the area, or he could very well have escaped the area. But again, the question is this incident, these sad incidents, are they limited to that specific area, or is this something more sinister that's going on not only in Minnesota, but perhaps around this country?
The fact that this suspect was wearing a police uniform, had a police vehicle, by all intents and purposes, not just any police uniform, it looked like the real thing, and that vehicle, not only, besides that being a horrific detail in this attack, could that not also be the thing that leads them to the suspect? Because not everybody has access to a police vehicle, and there's got to be something that they can do to retrace the steps, given the fact that he had that vehicle with the lights on outside of the home of these politicians.
Absolutely. That vehicle now is in the hands of the federal agents, and I am sure that they are going through that vehicle with a fine-tooth comb. And that vehicle will give them a great deal of information. It would not surprise me if they have a Pacific focus suspect as the result of that vehicle and the contents of that vehicle. So the investigation, while that whole area is in fact a crime scene, they are focusing specifically on that vehicle right now because that vehicle holds the clue to the killer in this case, in these individuals, unfortunately.
And obviously it held one of the biggest clues, which was the manifesto that police said they found in that police vehicle with a list of politicians' names, which led them to conclude that this was a politically motivated assassination of one former House Speaker and her husband, and as well as the attempted assassination of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, Yvette, who, by the way, at last check, they were shot multiple times or out of surgery, and we'll give you an update as we get it. Let's bring in former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker to join the discussion along with Ted. Nicole, the FBI is on the ground investigating. We know this. At this point, when the FBI is now involved in what is a residential situation with a man dressed as a law enforcement officer, the very first thing I thought about was the Boston Marathon bombing when they looked door to door in a residential area for Tsarnaev. How does the FBI approach this right now at 11:32 Eastern?
All right, Brian. So here we are again, another awful tragedy. People using violence to deal with their personal grievances. Obviously, this does appear to be very much politically motivated. The manifesto is going to be extremely important. The FBI's involvement is going to work hand in hand with the local and state partners. Obviously, the locals are the ones that are initially responding. I actually have worked threats to, senators here in Florida. I've worked these types of investigations in the past, and they will determine who has the best jurisdiction, what the charges would potentially be. But right now, the number one priority is the safety of the community, like you mentioned. This individual did interact with legitimate law enforcement, went out the back, and now we have the manhunt going. Number one priority, keep the community safe. FBI is going to be on the ground helping with, conducting the crime scene evidence response teams, dealing with that. But again, the primary importance right now is making sure that there is not an ongoing threat and this person is on the run, armed and dangerous, like you've continuously reported. If you have interaction with any law enforcement, make sure that there are two individuals, and you can always call dispatch to verify, is this a legitimate police officer or law enforcement officer? Safety for the community, number one, but this person is armed and dangerous. He is desperate. I think a very important piece of evidence that the FBI or any law enforcement agency would be looking at, was there a Ring doorbell camera right there at the front door when they approached the door of the...
And that right there is key. That right there is key, ladies and gentlemen. Always have a Ring camera in your home, in your front door, inside, everywhere. Have Ring camera. It doesn't have to be Ring camera. It could be any camera, okay? Just have a camera in front of your door so you can record. You could talk to the people. Like when I order stuff, I talk to my delivery guy on my camera. Hey, thank you so much. God bless you. Boom. And he's like, all right, cool. So you guys get a front door camera, man. Get a front door camera.
Senator's home and this woman's home as well. They're going to be looking for that. Obviously, the vehicle is filled with evidence. That is a treasure trove of evidence for the FBI and for the local law enforcement. They're going to be going through that right now, and they will start to build a profile of anything that they can find on this individual. How did they get that police uniform? What vehicle were they in? What tag, the tag? Who does it go back to? This is a very complex situation, but again, there is an ongoing threat because this person is still on the run.
We now have a statement from President Trump. Let me just read that right now. The statement goes as follows. I have been briefed on the terrible shooting that took place in Minnesota. which appears to be a targeted attack against state lawmakers. Our Attorney General Pam Bondi and the FBI are investigating the situation, and they will be prosecuting anyone involved to the fullest extent of the law. Such horrific violence will not be tolerated in the United States of America. God bless the great people of Minnesota, a truly great place. President Trump is no stranger to political violence. We are now dealing with two state lawmakers, one who was just assassinated, another one fighting for their life. I'll start off with you, Ted. What needs to be done here, you think? I know that there's an ongoing manhunt, but what needs to be done here to make sure that we are doing a better job at this point at protecting the lives of our public figures?
You know, I really wish there was one way to actually answer that question, Brian, but I can tell you there's really nothing that can be done if someone is hell-bent on getting at a political person. We saw that with President Trump in Pennsylvania there. I was in Butler, Pennsylvania, covering that incident down there, that attempted assassination. We saw another attempted assassination of Trump in Florida. And then we've had these lawmakers. You are always a target if you are a public official. And there's nothing you can do but just be very sensitive of your surroundings. But I have to believe that what we need to do, unfortunately, in this country is to lower the temperature. We have, I've always said the war between the North and the South has never ended. We have politicians at each other's throats, and the public are at the throats of politicians. And we just need to try to do what Rodney King said many years ago. We need to all try to get along.
Nicole, your thoughts on, you know, obviously we just heard from President Trump. It's his birthday. It's the 250th.
And that brings me to this parade going on around the country right now. No King's parade. I get it. You know, you don't like Trump. I get it. But when Joe Biden won, I didn't see a parade across the nation. So what do you want to gain from this parade across the nation? What are we doing? Just separating ourselves every single time, trying to divide ourselves every single time. Just let the man do his 4 years. Let the man do his 4 years. And go out and vote in 2028. Y'all voted for this man. And now what is going on with liberals, the left? What is going on? With every disaster that we had under Joe Biden, I didn't see anybody protesting. All of a sudden, he hasn't even spent 1 year in the Oval Office. You already have parades going on around the country. This ain't right, man.
Birthday for the U.S. Army. There will be a military parade in Washington, D.C. on the same day that we have what is set to be the largest day of demonstrations nationwide for President Trump's second term. Taking all of that in context, your thoughts on what the FBI needs to be doing here to perhaps do more to protect the lives of our politicians?
Just like Ted said, I mean, I wish that we could just tell everyone just take down the hate, take down the violence, take down, I mean, the hate and disgust. I mean, what we saw President Trump go through is absolutely unacceptable. It is evil. It is disgusting. It is wrong. And what we are seeing this morning, no one should be losing their life as public servants or former public servants who are trying to serve their communities. And again, the grievances that people have, turning to violence to solve their problems, that's not going to solve the problem. And like Ted said, unfortunately, there's not just something that we can do to make everyone simmer down. But I think looking at these riots and what's going on nationwide, you know, this is not okay. What's been happening in LA is unacceptable. The hate for law enforcement, what law enforcement is having to endure is just disgusting. It is despicable that this is even tolerated in our country. And thank goodness that we have President Trump in charge, who is saying we are not going to tolerate this. We are going to respect our law enforcement. President Trump is coming out today and quickly making a statement saying this violence against these individuals who were murdered, That is unacceptable in America. We don't care what side of the political spectrum you stand on. It's not about politics. These are about human lives. And we need to start having, like you said, like Ted mentioned, human decency. We may not agree on our political views and we may not agree on certain things, but that is not okay. That is not a reason to act out in hate and in violence. But unfortunately, that is the situation that we're in this nation. Working as an FBI agent, Brian, I saw it day in and day out. Fighting evil is what we did every single day. Kash Patel is the FBI director. Pam Bondi is the attorney general. I can tell you they are working around the clock, and it is a true battle that they are fighting. But again, law enforcement is right in there doing their jobs. I have such admiration and respect. And what is so abhorrent about this crime? This person was impersonating a local law enforcement official. Okay, that is what the community is expected to trust. There are many people that we can trust these days, and that's who we hope that we can trust. When they come to your door in the middle of the night, you want to hope that they're there to protect you, warn you of violence. When they are the ones actually causing the violence and impersonating an officer, this person must be found and must be held to the highest and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. I can guarantee you that they will hit this individual with every possible charge, local, state, and federal.
Ted, Nicole, thank you. We now know as you mentioned, that search for this suspect, that is the highest priority right now. Hey,
he's going to be found, but he's already done the damage. Crazy. Here we go.
Minnesota state lawmakers were shot in their homes overnight. Democratic Minnesota State Rep Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark Hortman were killed in what officials say was a targeted assassination. Another state lawmaker and his spouse were injured in the attack. The suspect escaped after an exchange in gunfire with police. There is an active manhunt for the shooter at this hour. Welcome to Fox News Live on a busy news day. I'm Mike Emanuel in Washington. For a reaction to the deadly shooting in Minnesota, let's bring in former FBI Special Agent Ren McEachern and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey here in our Washington studio. So, Ren, what we're hearing from authorities is the suspect dressed up as law enforcement, had a uniform, had evidently a badge, had even a vehicle that looked like a police vehicle, targeted assassination of elected leaders in Minnesota. What's your reaction to that? Where does your mind go?
Yeah, this is really worst case scenario in my book, because when you think of a police officer in uniform, that's the person you can trust almost every time. And to think that they're using that level of trust to take advantage and really commit this assassination essentially is very complex. And now for the law enforcement involved, not knowing who this person is, this whole area is going to be flooded with law enforcement. They may not know each other, right? They don't know different departments, different federal agents coming in, and there's going to be a big problem with identification, and then there's going to be a bigger problem with the perimeter that has to be set up. There are so many complexities of this crime, but this is horrific, and this is really going to be a trust issue going forward. One of the things that I thought was really important on the press conference where the police chief said is that when someone's approached by a police officer, they'll be in twos. So that's really important that people need to realize this. But it also is about knowing your neighbors, right? Neighbors should be calling each other, right, and saying, hey, is everybody okay? The other part of the story is, where is this guy? Is there a barricaded situation now? That further complicates this, right? And then they have to figure out who they are. So they go to a house-to-house search, and now they know this guy's obviously ready. He's armed and dangerous, clearly. There's so many complications in this case. The other side of this is there's also a lot of evidence in this case, right? It sounds like we have a vehicle, right? I'm sure we have now, it looks like some of the survivors could be eyewitnesses to this. You're gonna have ballistic evidence. We know there's gonna be DNA evidence, fingerprints likely within the vehicle, all the surveillance cameras. But right now it's about flooding all of the resources in. Thankfully, we know that Attorney General Bondi's already chimed in and said they're on top of this. I know the FBI and Kash Patel's groups are already sending massive resources. We know the administration and President Trump also chimed in. So they're going to get excellent resources. But right now it's about safety going forward for the community.
So, Ren, it sounds like this guy had a manifesto, that there were a list of people that he was targeting. So obviously you'd expect stepped up security at their homes. And what about the idea of combing a perimeter, a fairly probably decent sized perimeter?
It's incredibly problematic. And one of the things, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and with the Boston bombings and the Snarf brothers.
I want to break, forgive me this, there's a news update. Let's go live to the news conference in Minnesota.
Are all of the people on the list, have they all been notified, and do they have law enforcement presence with them?
Again, that is part of the investigation right now, so I'm not going to answer those.
Can you give us an idea of how many people are on
So, well, I'm sorry, as I mentioned, we're getting into investigatory information. I'll leave that to Superintendent Evans.
Yeah, and good afternoon again, everyone, or good morning. Drew Evans, Superintendent of the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension.
Superintendent, can we have it quiet out there so everybody can hear? Thank you.
What I wanted to note, though, is part of this, the references, the individual that is a person of interest that we've talked about, or individuals, are not in custody at this time. And so the reference materials that were inside of the vehicle that we saw, we have no understanding that any of the No Kings events would be targeted, but we also find it of interest to the public that these would be in there, and we want to alert everybody until we do that. Because this is such an active investigation with information not knowing right now, we feel it's an obligation to all of you and the public across the state of Minnesota to alert you of it, and that's why the Colonel made the notation of recommending people don't go today. But the individuals are not in custody yet, and so we want to make sure as that very active manhunt is underway and continues, that we make sure that we're sharing that, and that's part of why we're making the recommendation. As to the investigation and the list, we are working through that now and talking to individuals, and we'll continue to. What I would say with the list is there's a large number of people. That's all I can say about it. We will work through all of that, what the motivations of this are, and we'll provide that as you can. This is really a public safety announcement for everybody so that we can make sure people are informed and make safe decisions throughout the day.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Follow-up.
Yeah, so what
specifically about the No Kings?
Yeah, I heard that too.
Okay.
What was the question?
I was just going to say, we got an email from organizers saying the event's still on, and people are
So
supposed to be
yeah,
gathering now. So
it's a great question. So we're not the organizers. We're in contact with the organizers, I will say.
Yeah.
However, as you heard the message the Colonel gave, we've also put that out on State Patrol social media pages. And then I think with that, you will see that there's also a photo that goes along with that of what we found inside the car regarding the No Kings rally. Social media, State Patrol social media pages, and I believe it's also being shared in the Department of Public Safety social media pages. All right, thanks, guys. As I've done before,
Got an update from Circle Pines, Minnesota. Authorities there giving a brief update for journalists, trying to give them the latest information. Sounds like some evidence may be put out on social media so people are aware of what we're dealing with here. What caught your ear? I heard them mention individuals, plural. What about that?
Yeah, and I heard the same thing. This is a big shift, right? Initially, we heard one shooter on foot. Right now, individuals, often early information is incorrect in these matters. And so you have to now assume there's one to two or multiple shooters. Again, another level of complexity. Are they together? Are they, again, going back to the Sanarif brothers, those guys were together when on the run. And you have to think about, again, it's always a safety issue. How can we take care of that? And that's why they're probably going to have to put some information out. They likely have some understanding of who these people are or persons are. If the vehicle's registered to them, right, they may have some sort of identification there. But they're going to try to get photos. They may have, ring photos or surveillance photos, because it's so critical to get a photo out of this person, because the community is in lockdown and safety is paramount. But now 2 or 3 shooters now just ratcheted up the level of violence that's capable. And remember, these guys are on the run, right? They've already committed an assassination. We know they're clearly armed and willing to kill. And they're likely happy to probably shoot it out with however they get caught. The other problem here, as we were discussing, is the barricaded situation, right? They're going to have to go house to house, not just answer the door. They're going to have to clear each house. Every single inch of that house, of that building, has to be cleared, because someone could answer the door and say, oh, he's not here, but he's behind the door, holding a gun to them and say, hey, don't tell him I'm here, right? So they have to clear each house. And so this is a very long process. One of the other parts about, I was mentioning going to the Boston bombing example, the Sanarif brother that was actually captured, he was outside the perimeter. So I'd also tell people, even though you may be outside the perimeter, everybody should have their head on a swivel. The whole community around it needs to be very careful about watching and seeing things. The community is also going to play a big part in picking up that phone, calling 911 when they see something that doesn't seem right. This is also a part of the community reaching out to 911 to make those calls.
Former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey, where does your mind go as you hear these latest facts from authorities there in Minnesota?
Well, it is pretty interesting, because if it really, and I was, wasn't sure that's what he said until he said it twice about individuals. So this really cuts against the earlier advice that people were given to don't respond to police unless it's 2 of them. Well, if they're now 2 shooters, that certainly cuts against that. that and puts a greater risk to people when they're interacting with police, which certainly in this neighborhood today, people are going to be interacting with police because they're going to be interviewing people, gathering evidence. So this really makes it even more scary. And this whole situation is a horrible situation because sort of the obvious, you want to be able to trust police, but it does, you have all of these incidents of swatting and all of these things going on now, and it makes those even more dangerous for the people that are the victims of swatting, but also the police that are responding unknowing that they're being called to something that doesn't exist. And when I was a federal prosecutor, I prosecuted a case, I don't want to say similar because there are a lot of differences, but the perpetrators all dressed as police officers to gain entry into the home and killed 3 individuals. So this isn't an unusual tactic. It is in this case, but in many instances, people will dress up as police maybe to commit robberies and things like that. But it does just, as Ren was saying, just makes it more complex, more dangerous. And we certainly expect these people will be caught. And what's in that manifesto is going to be important as to motivation, but it may not be as important as the immediate need, which is just capturing these people, getting the public safe. But all of these things make it just really puts a whole community on edge and really the whole country on edge with so much going on. And this thing where they talked about, they made reference to the No Kings event. Does this mean that they were going to target this event? Does this mean they were associated with the event in some way? We don't really know, and I guess it doesn't really matter what the motivation is right now. It's just how do we catch these guys and stop the threat?
I want to read to you a tweet from the Minnesota State Patrol. It says, given the targeted shootings of state lawmakers overnight, we are asking the public to not attend today's planned demonstrations across Minnesota out of an abundance of caution. So these are protests by liberals, Democrats, progressives, however you want to label them. And so clearly there may be something in this manifesto that they found that is raising cause for concern. Jonathan?
Well, and I hope people don't attend just for that reason, because we don't need more violence on top of this. And there'll be, many more opportunities to make the same political point that these protesters want to make. But it is interesting what is in there. And the other thing that they did mention that I think that the second person on the press conference talked about they were making appropriate notifications. I assume these were individuals that were maybe listed in the manifesto that may be targeted. So to make sure, not only make sure they're warned, but maybe make sure they're also safe currently, make sure they've been made contact with to make, because they could still be trying to target these individuals, or they could be seeking to flee. We don't really know where their heads are at. And what Ren was saying, if they're willing to do this, maybe they're willing to clearly kill for a cause, they certainly may be willing to die for a cause as well. So these threats on these individuals may not be over right now.
I do think, though, if they're making the specific request not to participate in these protests today, to me, I think there's probably some articulable, evidence that is part of the scheme here. Clearly, there's a lot of preparation went into this, right? A lot of premeditation went into this. They were very organized. They took very detailed steps to do what they're doing. And we don't know if it's just this group, right? This could just be one part of a larger cell that's operating. That's where it really becomes quite concerning. And so for them to say no on going forward with the protest, there has to be, especially in Minnesota, there has to be something, I think, quite serious, and the public really should listen to that, because now it's really getting, the ratcheting up of violence is really getting to a whole new level here.
Gentlemen, thanks for your analysis. Great.
Exactly. A lot is going on. I mean, with the protest, what are they trying to achieve? Do they want this man to say, okay, I'm tired of being the president of the United States, I'm going to impeach myself, or I'm just going to resign? What are they trying to do? I don't get it. Anything to incite violence. In my opinion, that's what I see. But we are Americans, and we should let the man the people voted for be the president. Let him finish his 4 years, and you're going to get another chance to vote. Okay? You're going to get another chance to vote. I don't get it. No King's protest. What are you trying to achieve with that? And I saw Mark Ruffalo, what is his name? The guy that acted Hulk, the Hulk guy in Avengers movie. He's there protesting with them. Oh my goodness. All right, here we go.
Break it all down, Jonathan Turley.
George Washington University law prof and Fox News contributor. Jonathan, some former clerks and I were texting back and forth after Breyer's order came down, and we saw the transcript of the actual hearing, which I hadn't had a chance to read, where Breyer likened Trump to a king. The president is, of course, limited to his authority, he said. That's the difference between a constitutional government and King George. It's not that a leader can simply say something and it becomes it. Jonathan, now, is that little language lost on anyone ahead of this protest tomorrow?
Well, that is part of the concern that I have with many of these opinions. It is a problem when political talking points appear in judicial opinions. And I did think that that happened here. At one point, the court says that Trump is creating disorder by trying to bring in forces to prevent disorder. And that's the type of statement that is collateral to the merits. You know, there are good points of debate here, right? The National Guard is a creature of the states, but there's also a statute that says that the president has this authority and the governor shall issue the order to deploy the National Guardsmen. Now, you can disagree what the word shall may mean, but it's not an invitation to really sort of give these extemporaneous comments on the status of the nation. Or in this case, the judge goes in and questions even the need for any type of action here and belittles the level of violence. It seems pretty clear that Newsom had this judge at hello, and that really undermines the legitimacy of the opinion itself, and it takes away from the fact that there is a good faith debate as to where these lines of authority should be drawn.
Well, he obviously went to San Francisco, district court there, instead of going to L.A., district court.
Now, don't get me wrong, chat. Do not get me wrong. It is your right to go out there and protest. If you have to, if you wish to, if you want to, you can go out there and peacefully protest. It is your right. Go out there. Free speech. Do what you want, but prioritize safety and peaceful protest, okay? Do what you want to do. It is your right to go out there and protest. I'm just saying that 77 million Americans voted for this man. And what are you actually protesting? ICE from deporting illegal immigrants? What are you protesting exactly? You're saying no kings, no kings. Okay. What is your protest about? You don't want ICE doing their jobs. You don't want federal agents doing their jobs. This guy campaigned on mass deportation, and he hasn't even deported. He hasn't even deported as much as Obama did. But for some reason, every time it's about Trump, they keep doing this. Remember what happened in 2020? Every time it's about Trump, this keeps happening. I don't know why. I don't know, but this keeps happening. Liberals just keep making this hard every single time. Can we just come together and just say, you know what? All right, do your 4 years and let's see how it goes.
You know, liberals in both places, but I thought that was strange. It's all happening in L.A. Why are you going to San Francisco? But Breyer doesn't just bring up kings. Breyer likened Donald Trump to King George. And to me, and to those of us who read these orders with regularity and study them, that gave it away. We knew he comes across at least as a partisan, not as a serious jurist who is impartial about the facts in front of him.
Well, we've seen these sound bites inserted in other opinions. And the question is, who are you speaking to? I mean, you're supposed to be speaking to the law. You're supposed to be speaking to the citizens as to what the law demands, not how you view presidents or figures or politics or parties. And that's where I think that he did cross the line here in a very significant way. Now, the Court of Appeals is going to have to look at this. It could very well go to the Supreme Court. Since James Madison, this has been an issue. And the Supreme Court said back in the Madison administration that a president is given great deference in deciding when to deploy these types of forces. They generally do not second guess, as this opinion did. So you can debate the lines of authority, but much of this opinion seems to me really extraneous to the legal questions.
Yeah, and Jonathan, a lot of us think that this is all a prelude to, if the Democrats regain control of Congress, to impeachment proceedings, whether against cabinet officials, take your pick, whether it's Kristi Noem or the president himself, that the Democrats are setting in the narrative piece by piece. And that's what we're looking at with all these cases.
So what, they're going to try to impeach him again?
I take an even dimmer view of this, and listening to some of these politicians on your show in these clips, I mean, it's as if they become a party of Jacobins, that they are, endorsing the most extreme possible actions. I just wrote a book on the age of rage, and this is what rage does. It gives you a license to do things and say things you would not ordinarily do or say. And what these people won't admit, what they won't admit tomorrow, is that they like it, and that they need it, and that it's contagious, and it's addictive. That's what rage is, and you're going to see that tomorrow.
Yeah. It's chaos is their oxygen.
I'm telling y'all, man. This man won the election fair and square. He almost lost his life running for re-election. And he won. What else do you want? Now you're trying to impeach him again? You impeached him twice the first term. Now you want to impeach him again. This ain't right, man. All right, Pete, exit. Here we go.
Hey, Fox News alert. Right now, America's military bases in the Middle East are on alert as U.S. defense plays a crucial role intercepting Iran's deadly missiles targeting our greatest ally in the Middle East, Israel.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joins us now with the latest. Secretary, thank you for coming back. Guys, it's probably a little bit different being in that seat as opposed to this one, but in all seriousness, Americans are concerned. They see what's happening in Israel. They see what's happening with Iran. What's the latest you can tell us?
Well, I can assure you and the audience we're monitoring this in real time. The Defense Department has been tracking it at every level, and to include when it started and throughout. Had a meeting just this morning, and the president has been leading the way on setting the tempo of how we look at the region and ultimately recognize, a couple of days ago, Israel believed in its own self-defense. It needed to take action against nuclear capabilities and ballistic missiles, and we saw the response from Iran. We've seen that. The U.S. is postured to defend our people in the region. We've got significant assets in the region. We are robustly postured to ensure that our people, our bases, our interests are safe. And we're continuing to monitor any forces we would need to do that, capabilities we would need to do that. We will keep Americans safe. And you saw what Secretary Rubio said in his first statement opening. Ultimately, it should be clear to Iran that they should not turn their gaze to the United States. That would be a bad idea. And the president continues to message that he prefers peace. He prefers a solution to this that is resolved at the table. Iran still has an option for that, but Israel took what it believed it needed to do in self-defense strikes. And based on that first day, they were quite effective.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were encouraged by that conversation that Donald Trump had saying, hey, I'm still here available for negotiations. What do you know about that? Is he in communication with the Iranians directly in regards to that?
Well, the American people can be assured that President Trump is dialed in. This is not an auto pen moment. We had that where the world saw our gaze distracted or not paying attention at all. President Trump is dialed in. I get to see it every single day. He knows every single dynamic of what's going on here. And I'll tell you what he's doing, Rachel. He's putting America first.
Good.
And you understand, hey, how many factors there are, how many dynamics there are in the world. But his directive to me and to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and throughout our forces, hey, make sure you are robustly postured and prepared. And we are.
Has there been anything about the initial attack or the response that has surprised anybody in our government?
obviously we weren't, there's some things that we're not going to know about.
Right.
However, it was in many ways we understood what Iran's capabilities are. You understand for the most part what Israel's capabilities are. And so I wouldn't say there are any major surprises. That's our job, not to be completely caught off guard, to sort of understand the situation in front of us and then calibrate accordingly and provide maximum decision space to the President of the United States to keep Americans safe. So I wouldn't say we were really surprised by any dynamic of the back and forth that's been ongoing. But we're monitoring it closely.
The Israeli people have the Iron Dome, and we've seen it be very effective. There are a lot of U.S. troops in the region and other countries. We have the assets in the region now to protect our troops similarly.
No, Joey, that's our job. That's our sweet spot of what we're focused on. In fact, I was on Capitol Hill all week in hearings. You're familiar with that, Rachel. And one of the questions was asked is, hey, did you move some of your counter UAS, counter unmanned aerial systems defenses from Ukraine to the Middle East? To which I answered, yes, we did. We're using all assets available to protect our people in that region and around the world because it's a different landscape in defense these days.
Yeah.
Smaller systems like that can pose a big threat. We're as prepared as we can be.
Yeah, you got the whole idea of war is just changing right before our eyes. How this equipment versus the drones.
It's scary. It's scary. It really is. But we've got the right people on the job.
All right. Well, we're gonna move to this. Donald Trump on Friday afternoon said that the Iranians were hit 10 times worse than they thought they would be. They weren't ready to negotiate. I think they may be now. We'll see. Again, speaking, Pete, to that idea that, Donald Trump still giving peace a chance, still that peacetime president hopes to be.
Yeah, and he made it very clear, has continued to make it very clear to them that Iran should not pursue and will not get nuclear weapons. That is not in American interest, and certainly Israel believed it was a threat to them, and so Israel took action. As this back and forth continues, as I said, we're going to defend our folks, and the president is also making, and by the way, robustly and strongly. This is not some sort of a perspective where we're worried or concerned. We're vigilant. We're prepared in a strong defensive posture, while the president continues to say to Iran, "Hey, you have an option for peace. It includes, various aspects of what's been discussed. Iran knows. They know they can come back. They're making their own decisions right now, and we hope they would choose a negotiated option."
It's truly all you can ask for. Thank you.
Defense Secretary
Pete Hegseth, I must say, he surprised me. He's been working hard. I mean, with his troops, he's been working out with these troops. I mean, you could have your reservations about him, but is he stepping up to the job? Absolutely. So, shout out to Pete Hegseth. And with that being said, we got to say this, man. Can we just have peace around the world for a change? Can we just have peace around the world? I get it. It's hard. Peace is so expensive, man. Peace is so hard. It's like, God, can we just have peace? Now, if there's no peace around the world, okay, we could renegotiate peace. We could, find a way to find peace. But when we don't have peace inside the United States, in the homeland, that's not good, people. I don't care if you're liberal or conservative. That's not good. We have to stand up for peace. We have to stand up for law and order in the homeland. This is the ground where we have our families, our kids, our grandkids, our businesses, our homes. We have to stand up for peace. This ain't right. Back to Minnesota. Here we go.
Let's bring in retired FBI Special Agent John Iannarelli. John, it's fortunately rare, this kind of violence in this country, but somebody went to an awful lot of work here, and that suggests an awful lot of hatred for those particular individuals.
John, it absolutely does. We have seen these types of acts before, usually in criminal matters for home invasion, for financial gain, or revenge of some kind. But to do this, to target politicians, all the effort, the uniform, the car, the police lights, etc., a lot of planning went into this. And I would add, John, one of the reasons they're probably still looking for this guy is he staked out the area. He looked at maps. He knew well enough of his route of escape if he needed to make one. A lot of planning and a lot of preparation on this subject's behalf.
And he's frankly lucky. I mean, he got into a shootout with trained officers. One presumes he is not all that well trained with a pistol. I guess that is a big presumption on my part. But he got into a shootout with officers and apparently got away unscathed.
I would think that if somebody's planning this type of attack and going through all the nomenclature of police uniforms, vehicles, etc., he's probably trained as well and able to use a firearm, able to evade gunfire from the responding officers, which he assumed at some point he's going to have to encounter and probably encounter again unless he decides to give up. This person is dangerous, and that's one of the reasons the neighbors, the area, they need to lock down and be very careful until this person is taken into custody. Think of what happened in Boston just a few years back with the terrorist attack. The shooter that was eventually arrested hid on someone's property inside a boat, and it was days before he was actually located and arrested by the police.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential that people there in that area stay in their homes, lock the doors, and make sure they don't, answer them like the police have said. The presence of the FBI, what does that bring to this equation? I mean, the police there have done a great job so far just in encountering this guy at a home where they didn't know that a shooting had already taken place. But the FBI and its capabilities, what do they bring?
For the FBI to be involved, it's an absolute force multiplier. First of all, you have tons and tons of agents that can come in from not only locally, but brought in from other divisions to help enhance the law enforcement manpower, going house to house, doing a search with the SWAT teams. But the FBI also has special equipment and techniques collecting evidence, using their database to look at any connection to the subject and other people who they'll spread out across the country and interview anybody who's ever known this guy. A lot of that's going to help down the road in prosecution. But right now, hopefully it's going to help in locating and arresting the subject.
Since they know who he is, they presumably know his cell phone number. And even if he didn't bring it with him last night or, found a burner phone, bought a burner phone, whatever, he probably would have been making calls in the days and weeks ahead of this. Will they be able to track some of those numbers, some of those people he was calling, and find out what he was up to?
By this time, the FBI already has cell phone records from whatever the provider is, and they're going to know every person they've been in contact with, and be able to look up those numbers and see who those people are. They're not only being called, they're probably being paid visits at this right moment. Additionally, they're going to be able to track previously where that person has been, looking at his cell phone history, physically, what towers he's pinging off of in the past. So they're going to know how long he's been in the area, when he's visited there before, part of his planning. And also, it may give rise to places he's gone that perhaps could be where he's trying to get to hide.
Would you suspect he is still in that area, or do you think he may have had an accomplice who helped him get out of there?
We don't know yet if he's working with anyone. He probably put some thought into a backup plan of how do I get away. But without his vehicle, he's going to be on foot unless he's stolen another car, carjacked somebody. And again, that's only going to be reported if the person hasn't been taken hostage. We don't know, and it would be pure speculation. My guess is they have a perimeter. He's probably hidden somewhere in that perimeter. And as your other guests have said, it's a painstaking, exact process to search every square inch to make sure he's not squirreled away in some small corner somewhere.
Yeah, your memory of the search for the Boston bomber suspects is certainly a case in point. John Iannarelli, thank you.
All right, so while all of this is going on, protest going on as well. All right, as well as this crazy, disturbing sight is happening in Minnesota. We have people protesting around the country. All right. So let's see what those people are saying.
All right, we're going to turn back now to the riots in Los Angeles. Police are trying to push back rioters as they throw bottles at officers. Law enforcement was forced to use tear gas to protect themselves against these protesters. Christina Coleman is live with the latest for us. Hi again, Christina.
Yeah, they were throwing bottles, rocks, concrete, boulders, commercial-grade fireworks, and you could see officers. They still have a protective line here to try and stop the crowd from going any further. We've come to a point where you see these vehicles here. You can see cars who have been driving down along this way here in downtown LA. I imagine there's some confusion because this curfew it goes into effect in about a half hour, and you still have a lot of people down here, and different points are closed off. Again, as police, law enforcement, sheriff's deputies, as they do the best that they can to try to prevent any further violence. Again, since last Saturday, there have been more than 500 arrests related to protest activity, most of them for failure to disperse. But you did have the violence. There again, you can see law enforcement. So they continue to shift. They continue to move because it's a very fluid situation.
Just think about it. Think about it, y'all. This is America right here. This is what you see right now. This is America, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Why did we have to get to this level right here? Why? That's why.
Here, every now and then you have people just tossing, hurling objects at them. Moments before I came on air, we heard fireworks again. So can I imagine those were probably lobbed and hurled at law enforcement. So again, they block off that area. They do what they can. At times they have had to disperse tear gas. They've also dispersed those rubber bullets to clear out the crowd. So they're shouting hold here. You can tell they're doing their best, communicating, trying to hold the line here to prevent any further violence. And as we wait for this curfew to go into effect. But even before that, again, there was an order, a dispersal order for the crowd because of the violence that erupted hours ago. And so people have been told to leave this area, leave immediately, and you can see them disobeying law enforcement. So I'm moving along with my photographer here. And so you can just see this is what we've been doing off and on for hours. We've been moving all throughout downtown as protesters continue to move around in different areas. I saw them getting together in what looked like a little parking area between a couple of buildings, and law enforcement cleared that out pretty quickly. They're like, you need to go. And of course, they don't want people to get together and communicate and possibly cause mayhem, especially with this being such a volatile and unpredictable situation. So that is what we're seeing here. And again, you have so many people here, the protesters, who are they're calling for ICE to be abolished. They're calling for the immigration raids to stop. That is what they want. But that messaging,
You guys remember defund the police? Now abolish ICE? What is going on here, guys? What is happening here? This is a pattern. This right here is a pattern. Defund the police, now abolish ICE for just doing their jobs. Of course, there are going to be bad actors in any industry, okay? Whatever industry you are in, there are bad actors. But when you say defund the entire police, when you say abolish the entire ICE, what are you trying to say?
Don't hear it amid all of this violence here. So I'm standing here. You can see the police here. They're doing their best they can. I've moved just about a block since we've been doing this live shot. Been moving all around downtown, and you have a lot of protesters still here. Again, we're a half hour from that curfew going into effect. It's for a mile around downtown LA. Are you okay, Andy? I'm gonna continue to stay in the street here. You guys watch for me so I don't hit anything. So let's stop here. Let's stop here. So Andy, if you can pan back behind me, look at this line of police vehicles. You see that reinforcement here. They have been, some of these officers, they've been on horseback. They're in their patrol cars, they're in patrol units, they're here on the ground. They're doing all that they can. I mean, this area, there's such a huge law enforcement presence in downtown ahead of this curfew going into effect for them to try and keep this area safe. Back to you.
Christina, if I can just ask you, we talked a little bit about the arrest that happened since last Saturday, and you told me a little bit about the strategy. You know, can you imagine if all of a sudden police officers started arresting people right now, it would erupt in chaos. But these protesters also cover their faces because they don't want to be able to be identified later. And Attorney General Pam Bondi has said, we will come after you, we will find you. And as a matter of fact, they've gotten a few of the organizers. Are there people still out in the streets? Because we can see the backs of the cops, but we can't see the protesters. Are they?
I saw a movie today. It's titled The Amateur. The Amateur is, man, I can't remember the actors, but it was a great movie, and it showed how the CIA actually can track you with a mask on. They can find you. They know exactly what you look like underneath your mask. Whatever you think you're hiding, it's impossible. And I'm looking like, whoa, this is next level technology. So even with your mask on, you're not safe from the law.
Still all covered up and trying to hide their identities?
Right. Well, a great deal of them are. And I can tell you this. What Pam Bondi was saying and what the sheriff reiterated yesterday is when people are breaking the law, when they're committing these acts of violence, they might not be arrested immediately, but they said that arrest will likely come because even if they try to cover their face out here, there are so many surveillance cameras. There are people recording things on social media. I mean, law enforcement investigators, they're going to comb through all this evidence and they're going to find people who are causing destruction down here. Right now, LAPD Central Division, they just put on X a message. They said to our downtown LA businesses and residents, please report any criminal activity to LAPD Central Division. Any damage or vandalism should be safely documented. So they're calling on the local business partners out here. They're calling on people who have access to surveillance cameras to turn all that evidence in because they're going to comb through it and they're going to look for the people who have been lobbing, concrete and boulders, rocks, commercial grade fireworks at law enforcement. They say those perpetrators will be arrested and prosecuted and face the fullest extent of the law.
And
back to you.
That'll be very interesting, Christina, to see how that plays out. I specifically was looking at that tweet from the LAPD Central Division, and we're now 25 minutes from that curfew kicking in. And with the protesters on the march, we don't know for sure what will happen, but it is likely that things will escalate. And the businesses, the impact on downtown LA businesses has been pretty significant, it seems, from vandalism all the way to, in some cases, looting.
That's right. I stopped by a gas station this week and just to fill up, and I'm not sure if the guy was the owner, but he told me that he had a relative who had a business down here and that his business was just torn up and how devastated he was and how he thought the estimate was about $50,000 in damages. I mean, this has just been such a tough year for LA. You've got the fires and now you've got this, and it's just so unclear when all of this will come to an end. We've seen some of those peaceful protests throughout the weekend. I know we were all hoping for it today. You had that massive, what the organizers called No King's Day protest here in downtown LA. Thousands and thousands of people showed up, and for hours, it was relatively calm. It was relatively peaceful. And we're walking away, and then all of a sudden, we're getting these alerts that a dispersal order had been issued. And I'm like, what happened? What's going on? And it's because of this violence. We didn't have to go far to see people lobbing things at law enforcement, throwing bottles at law enforcement, and now you have this, them shifting downtown. And if you pan straight ahead of you, you can see even more law enforcement there. So they're blocking off different points, different intersections to try and control the crowd, try and keep people moving along. And then every now and then you'll just see people break out running, lots of protesters. Now, right now in this intersection, there was a huge crowd, but as you could see, it's gone. And this is a testament to law enforcement and how they are operating. They have a method here where they are moving slowly, they're moving the crowd along, and they're dispersing them, and that's what they want. Okay, so we just saw somebody just threw glass at law enforcement, and we're hearing some flashbangs. So you can see that. Andy, are you able to zoom in? Okay, so you can hear that going off right there. You can see them, if we can zoom in right there, you can see them firing off, trying to protect themselves. I just heard glass shatter, so somebody probably threw something else at these officers who are just doing their best to protect and serve. Really shameful that they're having to go through this. And like I reiterated earlier, Robert Luna, the sheriff, he said, things have been peaceful, but his deputies, they're still facing dangerous situations, and they are. I mean, just take a look at this. Back to you.
Well, please be safe, because you're right in the middle of it, and thank you for taking the risks you're doing to bring us these pictures. Question is, how do they choose where they're going to protest? Is this just sort of a random spot that they've chosen? Was there some immigration raids that were taking place around here? And are you hearing that the immigration enforcement is continuing? Are these protests having their intended effect of stopping immigration enforcement?
So the immigration raids are absolutely continuing. The Trump administration made it clear that they're going to continue to enforce immigration law. But as for these protests, it's not clear how long these are going to go on. I can tell you for these No Kings Day protests, there were all kinds of announcements. Law enforcement said they were aware of at least 40 of those events going on in LA County alone, and some 200 statewide. So a lot of those protests, So, and again, a very fluid situation. That march, that No Kings Day parade, that's over. But you can see it's still a handful of protesters here, at least in this intersection. I'm not sure where they are located throughout the rest of downtown. We're just continuing to stay a safe distance, following police, and adhering to their guidance as we continue to monitor this very fluid situation.
Christina, it's Miranda again. What sort of weapons or soft weapons, I guess, the police deploying? You said flashbangs. Are they shooting rubber bullets? Have they used tear gas yet?
There were No King protests here, for sure, in Atlanta, in Cobb County. So many people were out there with their, what would you call it, their signs saying no kings, no kings, no kings. It's like, okay, I get it. But like they said, these things are contagious. Even if you don't want to go out, your friends say, you know what, let's go out. We got to go out. It's like, oh yeah, really, let's go. And most of these people are kids in college and old folks. And mostly people who, of course, are being mobilized by organizations. And that's just the facts. These people have organizations that are saying, they probably have group chats, emails saying, all right, this is where we're going to meet. This is what we're going to wear. This is what we're going to write on our signs. Okay. But what are you guys trying to achieve, though, with this protest? That's what I'm asking. What are y'all trying to achieve with this protest? Are you saying Trump should resign? Or are you saying ICE should not deport illegal immigrants? Or are you saying you don't want borders? Or are you saying that the angel moms who have lost their kids to illegal criminals, migrants, are you saying those angel moms' tears and loss do not matter? What are y'all saying exactly with this No King protest?
Yeah, so, sorry, there was people moving around me. So what I have seen so far, we've seen the tear gas deployed, the rubber bullets. That is what we have seen, and we've heard those flashbang grenades. So that is what we have witnessed from our vantage point, and it was very effective in moving the crowd along. Like I said, it sounded like somebody was revving up a motorcycle, some kind of engine right there in the middle of the crowd. You couldn't see it, but it was intimidating for me to listen to. And those officers, they're facing that huge crowd, and they don't know what's coming for them. So they deployed the tear gas in that moment, and it was very effective in moving that crowd back. And this whole area that was, full of protesters, as you could see, it is cleared out as law enforcement continues to move forward here on Broadway in downtown LA.
Christina, you've been there for a few days. Do you feel that the violence, the protesters are getting more militant as days go by, or less, or is it just about the same?
It's really unpredictable because, like I said, we've had several days of calm protests, very large crowds, and things were calm. We knew that it could be risky today just because of the large volume of people that were going to be out here. Thousands of people were out here for the so-called No King's Day parade. So we knew that there was a chance. Also, you had this curfew in effect, and we were wondering how many people are going to listen, how many people are going to adhere to it. And certainly, it appears that people are not, a great deal of them. And so we're in this situation. But today, we just knew that thousands of people were going to come out, unlike some of the previous days, some of the previous protests we've seen this week where things were certainly calmer than what we had last Sunday. So it's very hard to tell at this point, but certainly tonight, a very volatile and dangerous situation.
Yeah, indeed. And Christina, have you seen LA Mayor Karen Bass out there where you are? I ask you that because we're now under 20 minutes to the curfew that she set will take effect. And the most recent tweet on her feed right now is from 6 hours ago of an aerial shot of a crowd. She says LA is strong. This is what peaceful protest looks like. We refuse the chaos, she says. And yet I'm just struck that she's not there. Does she know this is happening?
I'm sure she is aware of it. In addition to me and a number of other reporters, law enforcement themselves, they've issued this dispersal order. They've issued warnings. They've detailed what's happening. So I'm sure she is very aware of it. I have not heard her say anything about it. I'm not aware of her commenting on this as of yet tonight. I have not seen her out here, but certainly I'm sure she's aware of this ongoing chaos. She's been calling for people to be peaceful and stick to the message. But clearly, some of her constituents, they're not listening because we have yet another night of violence.
Christina?
And officers doing the best they can to stop it. Yeah.
Do you know if the protesters even know what their message is anymore? Because we see this happen, for example, with the anti-Semitic protests in New York City. You would talk to some of these protesters. They really didn't understand 100% why they were there. They were rallied to come there in some way. But it was fascinating that some of the messaging that you talk about gets lost on the folks who were actually on the ground.
Well, it certainly does. And I don't understand how people think that this is going to be effective, that hurling dangerous objects at police, throwing fireworks, vandalizing buildings, writing vulgar slogans all over property, how that is going to help anyone's messaging. It certainly does. And if anything, it takes away from it. And the mayor, I feel like she tried to reiterate that to people, and they're just not listening. So during these protests earlier today, they're calling for ICE to be abolished. They say they want the raids to end. But either way, no matter what they're saying, at the end of the day, this is what you see. You see the violence. You see police responding. You see the tear gas, you see the flashbangs. This is what this night has turned into, and so that messaging, it's lost in all of this chaos.
Christina Coleman.
Of course, it is lost, but this is what people don't want to say. They're saying Trump is living like a king, but this guy doesn't even get paid. He doesn't take his salary as a president. He doesn't. Nobody's even talking about it. He doesn't even talk about it. He doesn't even talk about the fact that he isn't getting paid to do the job that he has right now. But everybody's out there saying he's living like a king. He's a king. Oh, okay. I get you. Anyway, No Kings protest in New York. It's getting wild.
And now let's go to here, New York City. Officials here are bracing for anti-Trump demonstrations planned across the city today after a week of disruptive anti-ICE protests. With more on how the efforts to keep people safe, New York City's Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Kaz Daughtry, is with me today.
The protest went from ICE out of LA, ICE out of New York, ICE out of Texas, all of these other cities, right? Now it's moved from no ICE to No Kings. This is how you know these folks are just really, they don't know what they are protesting right now. What are y'all protesting for real?
Hey, Kaz, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
What do we expect today in terms of the size and scope of this No Kings protest in New York?
So far we have identified 18 different protests that's supposed to take place throughout the city today. That's right, 18.
Yeah, it's a lot.
However, the mayor made it very clear on our call this morning. He made it very clear to the NYPD that when you come into New York City and his administration will protect the fundamental right to protest. You can come here protest, but you got to do it peacefully.
Yeah.
Once protests start to go left, NYPD will move in and restore order.
I've seen numbers here that you guys are expecting upwards of 75,000 people potentially to hit the streets. Is that accurate?
I think those are inaccurate, but we are not concerned of the daytime protests, what should be happening from now to about 6 o'clock. We're a little concerned more what's happening at night. Okay. You know, they say you got those small agitators, 25, 30, 40 people that get that mob mentality, and that they can create a sense of lawlessness by breaking windows and throwing objects at vans, and that's not what we're going to tolerate here in New York City.
How do you protect the city when you have 18 different marches across all 5 boroughs?
Since October 7th, we had over 6,000 protests in the city. The NYPD is the most equipped police agency in the country to handle this. We have numerous assets out there. Chief Shell is the incident commander today, and he has a vast variety of experience doing this. We have full confidence in his ability to lead the troops today, and this is we are prepared. There's thousands of officers working today.
What's the red line? Because I've been out there for those anti-ICE protests, and it seems to me that the NYPD is not messing around. Trash bins, anything that's thrown, you guys are reacting to it. Anybody who's standing in front of traffic, you are reacting to it. It seems like you're putting people on notice.
Since the first day when the protests hit New York, so I think it was on a Tuesday, I think the department made 86 arrests. Like I said before, this administration, the Adams administration, you can come here and protest in New York City. Just do it peacefully. Once you cross the line, like I said before, where guys were throwing rocks, they were throwing garbage cans, they were throwing barriers, they were putting debris, they were blocking vehicles. The NYPD SRG team, Strategic Response Group, moved in, restored order, cleared debris up. That's what we do. That's what they're going to do. The NYPD does it best.
What can you tell us about the groups that are potentially trying to bring violence today? Are there many groups? How small is this group?
I don't want to go into details about the groups. We have a really, really good intelligence commissioner, Rebecca Weiner. Her and her analysts and her team are constantly monitoring these groups, and I will leave it that we kind of have a sensitive idea what they want to do here in New York City, and I can promise you that's not going to happen.
I believe New York has talked with the president, and I think the message has been that New York does not need federal help. Is that true? Do you believe that the NYPD can handle this?
The NYPD, we have a multitude of different public safety agencies here in New York City. We are perfectly capable of policing our protests here in this city. Like I said before, look at day one. Set the tone on day one. We're here on Tuesday. 86 arrests. We're not playing around. We want you to come here and do it peacefully. Once you cross that line, the NYPD is going to restore order. We have lawyers embedded with our department on the streets.
Right.
And it's a great feeling as a police officer. Remember, I did this for 20 years. To turn over, look over your shoulder when you got the NYPD legal behind you. Hey, and to ask a question, and they say no, he's good to go arrest him.
You know, Kaz, you were instrumental in 2020. You were out on the street every single night for those protests. I was out there reporting as well. How can you compare what we're seeing now to 2020? In other words, are you starting to see the same pattern? Is it beginning to look like we could have a summer like 2020?
Absolutely not. You said it yourself, 2020 was nothing compared to what we're seeing right now. There are some anarchist groups here, paid agitators, that want to revert back to get what's happening now to 2020. And the department and the mayor is not going to allow that to happen. You can't compare 2020, those Floyd protests, to what we're seeing here in New York City now. No way.
Do you think the same agitators in LA exist here in New York City?
I believe that the agitators here are trying to replicate what's happening in LA to happen here in New York City. Like I said before, the department has a great grasp on that, and we're not going to let that happen. This administration is not going to let lawlessness happen in the streets of New York City.
New York City Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Kaz Daughtry, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear. No chaos. You can protest, but no chaos, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what y'all are protesting in the first place.
Marines and the National Guard still on the ground in Los Angeles, where a curfew remains in effect. Hundreds have been arrested in days of violent protests against ICE immigration sweeps. Now thousands are marching in hundreds of anti-Trump No Kings protests nationwide. Our Christina Coleman is in Los Angeles with the latest from there. Christina.
Hi, John. Yes, right now I'm in downtown LA where thousands of protesters have gathered. They marched around downtown. If you can see there behind me, they are calling for ICE to be abolished. They're also calling for an end to the ICE raids. Take a look at this video. Now, since last Saturday, there's been more than 500 arrests in the LA area related to protest activity, many of them for failure to disperse and others for more serious charges, including looting, attempted murder with a Molotov cocktail, and assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer.
People have to stop calling ICE terrorists and criminals and racists because you're there enforcing the laws enacted by Congress, signed by a president. And that's exactly what ICE is doing. They're enforcing the law. They're not making this up. They're trying to make everyone safer.
Now, there have been some peaceful protests, including the one I'm at right now.
So this is what I don't get. You're saying No Kings, abolish ICE, whatever y'all is talking about. So why do you have Mexico flag and all of these flags? I'm not saying it's a crime to wave your flag. You know, you can do what you want. But if you love your country so much, why are you in the United States? Why? You love your country, you love your flag so much, you can wave it so high. Why are you here in the first place? Like I've said multiple times, I truly believe the United States is the greatest country on earth. I'll say that one more time. The United States of America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. So why would you wave another country flag on American soil? Now, I'm not saying it's a crime. I'm just saying, if you love your country that much, why are you here?
Much different from last weekend, and law enforcement is out in full force today to try and keep them that way. They say they're aware of 40 different events here in LA County regarding the No Kings Day protests and roughly 200 of these protests statewide. Meantime, Democrats continue to heavily criticize President Trump for deploying 4,000 National Guardsmen and 700 Marines to the LA area. They're here to protect federal property and federal personnel during the anti-ICE protests.
Christina Coleman is.
Look at that. Look at that. You love your country so much. You say abolish ICE. ICE is only doing their job. They're only doing their job. They're only doing their job. And most of these people are here now saying abolish ICE. What do you think Laken Riley's parents, mom, watching this right now is thinking about. Because an illegal immigrant actually ended her daughter's life. What do you think she's thinking right now? Now, I'm not saying every migrant in the United States is a criminal. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if your first act is crossing the border illegally, and then you come into the United States and you ask for due process, how does that even work, people? Because I'm trying to understand how that works. All right, back to Minnesota.
We are back with a Fox News alert. 2 Minnesota state lawmakers and their spouses were shot overnight by someone impersonating a police officer. State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband were killed, while State Senator John Hoffman and his wife are in critical condition. Governor Tim Walz and Minnesota State Patrol asked the public not to attend today's anti-Trump protests out of caution as the killer is still on the loose. Brooke Taylor is live with the very latest. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, Griff. Over in Minnesota, there was just a press conference held a few minutes ago, and officials there are now asking for the public's help. They have officially identified this suspect as 57-year-old Vance Bolter, and they say they need help finding him as there's this massive manhunt underway right now, considered armed and dangerous. And you're looking at, this is our first time that we're getting to see what he looks like. Police officially releasing these photos of him. You could see he's wearing a cowboy hat here. This was taken this morning. Police say that he was last seen leaving a business.
Look at this guy. Look at the guy that the entire police force, FBI, is currently looking for right here. These people, I don't think, in my opinions, these guys are cowards because you cannot literally debate your point that you have to resort to violence. Why would you have to resort to violence? Like I always say, I don't care if you're liberal or you're conservative. The number one issue here is you are an American. You have to act like one. This is un-American right here. This right here is un-American because we stand for peace, law, and order. You cannot be doing this BS and saying you're fighting for whatever party you are with or whatever ideology you have. This is America. You have to act with sense, okay? This right here is just lack of common sense and, just stupidity.
Now, around 2 a.m., police responded to the home of Democratic Senator John Hoffman. He and his wife were found shot, but officials say they're going to be okay. But then police went to check on Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman, who lives nearby. So this was just as a precaution. Police say she and her husband were found shot and killed by the same shooter. When officers arrived there, they noticed a police car in the driveway. There were lights and emergency lights on there. When they saw a man coming out of the home dressed in a fake police uniform, he even had a fake badge on. Now, when officers confronted that shooter, police say they exchanged gunfire. He somehow managed to run away and ditched his car. Police say they found a manifesto inside the car with the names of other politicians. Listen to some of that press conference.
We believe he's was still in at this time. He was in the Twin Cities area, and that we are continuing to work and follow up on that. We believe he's working to potentially flee the area, and so that's why we're sharing that with that information now so that we can safely apprehend him.
And here's what we know about the suspect right now. Bolter works as the director for a security company. His bio on that website says he's been trained by private security firms and people in the military. He was appointed by Governor Mark Dayton in 2016, then by Governor Walz in 2019 to the Bipartisan Workforce Development Board. His term expired in 2023. Officials say right now there are hundreds of law enforcement on the ground searching for him. The FBI is also there. As far as a motive, Griff, officials say it is just too early for them to want to talk about that.
Just a heinous act. Brooke Taylor, we'll check back in with you if news develops. Brooke, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please be kind. Be nice in the chat. All right? Be nice in the chat. Don't forget, as much as you don't support Trump, as much as you don't like Joe Biden, as much as you don't like Kamala Harris or whatever, just remember, you are American, okay? People died for this land right here. So the least we can do is just love each other and promote peace, okay? Can we try that? Can we try that for a second, please? All right, here we go.
Former LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva joins me now. Alex, thanks for being here. This is going to be the largest single day of protests in President Trump's second term. How have local law enforcement, how have they prepared around the nation?
Well, ideally, every single one of these protest marches has a permit through their cities, their county, whatever their municipality looks like. And with the permits, then traffic is controlled. We have the highway patrol that's available, and they have been mustered at full strength, LAPD at full strength, Sheriff's Department full strength. But this is full strength. It is in a staffing crisis, so that is not very big. So a lot of this is going to rely on the cooperation of the people that are doing the marches, that they keep it civil, and you have to have mobile field forces ready on standby to be able to react to anything that turns violent from these protests. And you're going to have people marching within the protests that gives law enforcement feedback as to what the temperature is of the crowd and what they're proposing to do.
How do you think what's happened and what's transpired over the last week in LA is going to affect today?
Well, I think the people that were initiated the violence, the pushback they're getting from within the progressive movement, they realized that was very bad optics to destroy a city and then claim that they're doing something on behalf of the people. So I'm hoping that they're telling people, hey, protest peacefully, show that we can do it the right way, which would be a very good thing. And let's see, though, however, if they can control the fringe elements, which is the Antifa crowd. That is going to be the key right there.
You've got some cities like Philadelphia emphasizing, I would say, de-escalation. You have other places, though, emphasizing a show of strength. You've got Texas calling in the National Guard. You've got Florida also not calling the National Guard, but they've had very strong language about today's protests. Which strategy do you think is going to work best?
Well, it's going to be the one that's going to be balancing the right of people to assemble peacefully and have law enforcement support that and control that crowd so they're not under attack. And that is important, but then be able to distinguish with the people that start breaking up sidewalks with hammers to throw concrete at law enforcement. That right there is a distinction between the two. We were able to do that in 2020 successfully. I think we can do it again in 2025.
Alex, let's listen to this soundbite from the LA County Sheriff Robert Luna.
We're going to come after you. That's going to continue. So if you're out there throwing rocks, Molotov cocktails, high-grade pyrotechnics, and all these other weapons, you're going to get caught and you're going to get arrested. And I have had 10 deputies injured. And I don't want to see any more police officers or deputy sheriffs injured or anybody else on either side of this.
Alex, you've obviously have experience in LA. What do you make of how LA law enforcement has reacted and responded over the last week?
I would say they had a failing grade Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It took them all the way into Monday or Tuesday to finally get their feet under them. But they failed to come to the aid of ICE agents when they were under attack on Friday. When the city was under siege with violent riots on Saturday and Sunday, they failed to actually use law enforcement to go after the people that were assaulting the CHP cruisers and the officers that were hiding under a bridge, for example, on the 101. They failed to come to their aid. It took them over an hour to get there. That is, I don't know what the sheriff was thinking, or the LAPD chief. They were too concerned about optics than about actually enforcing the rule of law, because they have the resources. I have too many reports of mobile field forces sitting in parking lots twiddling their thumbs while people were breaking up, sidewalks trying to assault cops on the street. So I hope they learn their lesson and figure out, hey, intervene now, because when they fail to early on, that generated a bigger and bigger problem. This is lessons we've learned through riots throughout history. Address it early, decisively, and you calm the situation.
Alex Villanueva, the former LA County Sheriff. Alex, thank you for.
Ladies and gentlemen, Americans watching right now, I don't know what city you're watching from. I am in Georgia right now. I just want to say, you know what? Life is too short to be inciting violence or to not love your country or your family. Okay, so happy Father's Day to the awesome fathers out there. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never, ever give up on God. All right? Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. All right? Thank you to the veterans. Thank you to the military personnel. You guys protect the homeland. And happy birthday to the Army. They celebrated its 250 years old birthday. Shout out to them. Thank you for your service. Thank you. And hopefully one day, the United States would have no homeless veterans. The United States would have no hungry veterans begging for money on the streets. This is something that I always pray about and dream about. One day, the United States would have no homeless veterans. All right? Now, with that being said, shout out to our esteemed members. Shout out to the GOAT, Luke. Shout out to the GOAT, Luke. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Sandra. Shout out to Ringmaster. And of course, shout out to the hard-working moderators, the impactful C. Shelley, God bless you. Shout out to Mr. Busky. Wait. C. Shelley, I think you're the only mod in here today. Whoa, you've been working. No, oh, yeah. I see Enders. God bless you, Enders, for being here. Thank you. And shout out to Jet as well. It's been consistent. Shout out to Jet. And everybody who tuned in. God bless y'all, man. Don't forget, this land right here that harbors you, your family, your parent, your job, your home, this land is called the United States of America. Okay, it is the United States. Okay, so let's stay united. All right, let's promote peace. Don't forget, doesn't matter if you're conservative or liberal. We are Americans. Let's promote peace. Okay, doesn't matter who's in the Oval Office. It doesn't matter who's your mayor. It doesn't matter who's the governor. What matters is this land. This is the greatest country on the face of the earth. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, God bless you for tuning in. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn on your notification bell. This is what we do here. We promote peace. It is a free speech platform, but be nice. All right, be nice. All right. It is your boy Genesis. God bless you. God is the greatest. And thank you so much for being here one more time. Also, happy Father's Day to every hard, brave, strong fathers out there. Thank you for doing what you do. It is your boy Genesis, and I am signing out.